Okay, so I have a massive set of Kuretake Gansai Tambi colors, and I rarely use this, so let's use them right now. I'm gonna swatch these. They do have a swatch sheet on the lid, but this paper is a bit strange, like it's not watercolor paper, so I want to swatch it on paper I tend to use. I have already made this grid for swatching, so I can just get straight into it. So I think the main reason why these have been neglected so much is because the set is so massive. I have sometimes picked out like individual pans, so for example the gray on the bottom row I've used for a seal painting quite recently, and I've really enjoyed using it for birds, but like as a whole set I haven't really used it. And I really want to, because I really like these colors. These are very different from like usual, I shouldn't say usual, but like from Western watercolors. Because these have a different binder that's called Gansai, I think. When Western watercolors have a Arabic gum binding. And these feel kind of like creamier, and these are also more opaque than Western watercolors. And they are very different, but I like the things that make them different. I really love these pastel colors, this minty green and this like baby blue. They're very unique colors that you don't really see in watercolors. But back on the not using these things, like I'll be honest, there's nothing sadder than unused art supplies, and I really want to fight against it. I struggle with like being afraid to use supplies because I feel like, I guess, I'm not worthy, or I don't know, something like that. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that, but I really want to fight against it because there's a reason why I bought them. These are meant to be used, not to be stored. Here's a shot of all the colors. Like, these are so pretty. I'm so excited to use these. So now it's much later. I did the sketch off screen, and it's quite light, so it can be a little hard to see. And you can actually see it more clearly here. This is like the concept art, I guess. I do these sticky notes in my sketchbook of ideas that I want to combine, and this is like the planning out of the layout. And I just sketched these in with my erasable colored pencils. This bird is actually a gold crested tit, which are one of my favorite birds. Well, I have so many favorite birds, but I really like these. They are very cute. And I really like teapots, so I wanted to do a frog one because I think that's quite fun. So the way I usually work with my Gansai Tambi, so well, I say that, but I so rarely use them. But I try to not layer them a lot. Like, I do layer them, but I don't do like several very thin layers. I like to use this thick. So I'm just gonna start laying down the colors. I do have references up for the bird, but not really for the teapot. So I'm just making up the lighting as we go. And the thing I'm drawing with these right now is just using the colors straight out of the pan. I'm very used to, well, I don't really work with limited palettes, but I do mix most of my colors. I often use very muted colors, so I do have to mix them a lot. But since this set is already so big, I want to try just use the colors straight out of the pan. I think that's what they're meant for. That's why the set doesn't have any like mixing space. Not that you could get any on there, because this set is massive enough as it is, and I don't think it would be very usable with a mixing palette on the side. Ah! Oh no. Maybe I'm being a bit too brave. Not gonna stop though. I love painting birds so much, but their feet are like super hard to draw. And since the set has these fun colors, like these are what inspired me to do the frog teapot. I really want to use these blues. For the bird I went... Oh, I still have yellow on the brush. For the bird I went in with like straight colors. I went wet on dry. But for the frog teapot I think I want to do wet on wet. And the main difference is that when you lay colors on top of already wet paper, the colors bleed into each other, so you get a very smooth blend. Unlike on wet on dry, so painting on dry paper, you have a lot more control. And the idea for the cups was that these are like... well, I only fitted one into the final piece, but I wanted these to be like water lilies. And these are the lily pads. And also there's like a placemat that's also a lily pad on the table. It's not like anything groundbreaking, but I thought it was quite a fun and cute set. Like, I'm not in the market for a tea set, but if I was, I think this would be something I would absolutely love. Honestly, the cup was giving me kind of a hard time because the shape is quite like complicated. There are a lot of like edges on it. So I kind of struggled with it, but I'm gonna fix it more with colored pencils later on. I let the teapot lid completely dry before I went onto the body because I wanted to be a clear separation between the lid and the rest of it. I'm gonna be careful, I wanna leave a highlight here for the rim. Also, my lighting does keep changing and I'm sorry about that. I try to keep it as consistent as I can. I do rely on sunlight to film this video since I don't have any good lighting indoors. And I feel like the colors look much nicer in the sunlight, but there's a risk of always the clouds moving and the lighting changing. So that white line is something I'm trying to preserve. Now that I'm having so much fun using this, I'm really sad that like how much I've been neglecting these. I really enjoy them for the like creaminess. They kind of feel like wash. Right now I feel like the bird is looking really out of place, so I want to try to add this baby blue into it to make it match the rest of the painting. And as you can see, like the colors that have white in it act kind of like wash, so you can really layer it. Like you can see it's kind of thick looking and it layers quite nicely on top of the gray. But on like Western watercolors it would probably get quite muddy. Also this yellow feels really out of place, so I'm gonna try to include it more. I think I want the frog's stomach to be kind of a cream color, so I'm probably gonna go for like... I think this is a bit too peachy, so I'm probably gonna go for this and mix the same orange yellow. It's this color. Yeah, I feel like this is quite a fun color combination of like the cream and this like golden yellow. I'll be honest, I'm kind of regretting using the gray. Like I mentioned, I really like this gray. I feel like it's perfect like a neutral gray for doing a lot of birds, and I also painted recently a seal with this color, but I feel like it's a bit too dull. So after I add in more of the background, I'm gonna have a think if I should paint over the entire gray of the bird with maybe a blue to make it more colorful. Okay, now that I laid down the background colors for this piece, I can really see that the gray on the bird is really not working. So I'm trying to go over it with one of the lighter blues in the set. And also I'm seeing like these pots, like everything is kind of lacking contrast. It had some contrast against the white, but now that there's like color in the background, it's looking already like flat and light. So I'm just gonna try to add more definition and contrast back to the piece. While I add more shadows to the pot, I'm trying to keep in mind that it's very shiny, so I try to preserve the like shiny bits and also like this sort of like reflective parts. Also I'm adding in some of the dark blue so I can add more contrast. Yeah, I feel like it's even looking a lot shiny after I added in the shadows. I tried a lot to reuse the colors from like other areas of the painting. For example, I needed a stronger shadow on the cream colored parts on the frog. So I used like, I think it's like burnt sienna that I already used on the bird's legs. I'm really happy with the frog so far. I was a bit unsure about what to do with the lily pad because doing like fabric textures isn't my strong suit. So I just laid down greens and hoped it looked good. So now I'm just gonna be brave and try to make the bird look more blue so it fits more in with the colorful vibe. I'm just mixing the colors on the pan. I kinda hate it, but it works. I think that's still too gray. But yeah, I don't usually I try to keep my pans always very clean. But for this palette, I feel like this way of working works just fine. Yeah, I like this blue better than I like the gray. I just need to add in the shadows back. But like, look how opaque these are. Like, it's covering up the eye, which is almost like a black color. And it's not like it's a bad thing. I'm just talking about it because it feels super novel to me. And honestly, I find that a bit funny. Like, the things I get excited about is like opacity. That's a very simple thing, but I'm like, woo, opacity. And for like context, I use usually watercolors, which are very transparent, so they basically have little to no opacity. So things like Gansai Tambis or gouache are kind of like new and exciting to me because I've been using watercolors for so long. So I worked away at the bird a bit. I started using the paint more like I would use gouache. Like you can see the thicker paint strokes on the wings, but I don't really mind using it as like more like gouache because you enjoy like how thick you can get them. So I really want to take advantage of that. And it was also really handy because I wasn't happy with the bird's color. But now I'm noticing like the piece looks a bit like uncanny, I think. And that's because I have rendered like the individual pieces, but I haven't added in like shadows. The light is kind of coming from like this direction. So I do need to add shadow for the frog and the cup and more for the bird. And also a little bit on the table mat. So that's what I'm gonna do next. Yeah, I'm regretting the red shadow because it's kind of like an outdoorsy scene with blue lighting. So I want the shadows to be cool. I'm just seeing if I can cover this red up. Again, using the thickness of the paint to help me. At this point, I don't feel like I'm getting much purchase of the watercolors anymore. And what I mean by that, I feel like when I'm layering, I'm kind of losing detail rather than gaining more detail. So I'm gonna switch to adding some colored pencil on top of this. This is the color section I picked out. I might need a darker color, maybe a darker blue, but these are the ones I have. This is the only Derwent one, and the rest are Faber-Castell polychromers. So I'm just gonna go in and define details, like I've lost the legs almost entirely. Also, I'm gonna add some woody texture to the table. The idea was kind of like it being like a picnic table, and I feel like colored pencils are much better suited for that than watercolors. Okay, so I did the texturing and adding details with colored pencils, and I'm probably gonna skip through most of it in edit, because I do a lot of this action, so it's really hard for you to see. But I added some like lines to define some things and texture to the bird, and also I drew some wood texture on the table. I just like using colored pencils to add like sharper edges, like on the bird, like these feather tufts, which are kind of hard to get with watercolors. You can do it, I do it sometimes. I have my teeny tiny brush for it, but I really love the crispness of colored pencils. So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not very used to making like full-on illustrations. Or I mean, I do illustration, but I don't draw like backgrounds or objects or stuff like that. I do a lot of like bird illustrations and portraits. But I'm really happy with this. I'm really proud of myself for trying something that's new to me, because this is really hard for me. I kind of regret adding in the cup. I don't think it adds that much, but the him is so pretty. I'm really happy with it. But yeah, I'm really happy with this, and I'm so glad I returned to the Kuretakes. Like they're so fun, and I'm definitely gonna be using them more. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed watching me make this painting. I wish you a great rest of your day or night, wherever you are. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye!